Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to this BBB webinar partnered with SwickTech on leveraging Microsoft Teams for remote employees in ways you didn't know were possible. My name is Julie Albrecht. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications here at your Better Business Bureau serving Wisconsin, and I'm going to be facilitating this webinar on behalf of BBB as we hear from two technology professionals who will be taking us through using Microsoft Teams for your business and maximizing your productivity. So before we get started today, just a couple of really brief housekeeping items. If you have any questions or comments, please place those in the questions pane of the GoToWebinar panel. We won't call you out or anything, so feel free to ask questions anonymously. We really want to make sure that we address any specific questions that you have today, and I can ask questions on your behalf, and our presenters, Shane and Eric, will be happy to answer those for you. This webinar is being recorded and it will be sent to you via the email address you used to register by tomorrow afternoon. So you can feel free to watch the recording, and don't worry if you miss something there. All right, with that, I think we will jump right in. So it's my pleasure to introduce our presenters today. First off, Eric Clark. Eric is focused on providing security and stability solutions to businesses across Wisconsin. Eric came to SwickTech's sales and marketing team in 2017, where his role has morphed into a client success associate. Eric is the first point of contact for businesses when they begin a relationship with SwickTech. Eric received an Associate of Science degree in 2014 in Communications from the University of Wisconsin, and in 2016 received an Associate degree in Graphic Design and Web Media from Rasmussen College. Eric was born and raised in southeastern Wisconsin and currently lives in Oconomowoc with his wife Holly and their two children. Eric also has a passion for hunting and spending time outdoors. He actually founded a hunting app called Where to Hunt and hosts a weekly podcast of that same name. He was just telling me earlier that he's got the podcast set up behind him, so hope to hear a little more about that maybe too, in addition to Microsoft Teams. Next is Shane Kranig. He has been helping businesses across Wisconsin for the past 18 months as a client success associate at SwickTech. Shane is a homegrown Wisconsin product born and raised in the greater Milwaukee area and currently lives with his wife Allison in Wauwatosa. Shane graduated from UW-La Crosse in 2012 with a bachelor's degree in information systems and later received his master's degree in engineering and in management from the University of Colorado Boulder in 2017. Shane is a seasoned technology expert focused on the Microsoft stack and enjoys being able to improve productivity and promote success for the organizations he works with every day. All right, with that, I'll hand it over to you guys. Welcome, Eric and Shane.
Thank you so much, Julie. We appreciate the really warm intro and not messing up our last names or anything like that. That's great.
And I did my best.
Yeah, you did great. Thank you so much. We're gonna get rolling here. Microsoft Teams Does That is the title of our presentation. We had done a webinar very similar to this right before on the cusp of when COVID had kind of started back in March. We have since done a 201 version that does dive a bit deeper. So this one will be more broad strokes and kind of showcasing what Teams actually does. There might be some possibility that we could do some demonstration, but more or less this is going to be a presentation style. So we'll get started. A little bit about SwickTech first. We are a traditional managed service provider, and we're located in New Berlin, Wisconsin. We do IT consulting. We do a lot of project work. Been focusing a lot on cybersecurity and lift and shift to the cloud from on-premise, and obviously a bunch with Microsoft 365 and doing a lot with Teams, obviously, and also Teams Voice. We have right around 30 employees, and this goofy bunch here, we miss being in the office with everybody on a day-to-day. But half our staff is technical, the other half is administrative. And we also have a help desk to help businesses throughout the region as well. So that's 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday and 8 a.m. to noon Saturday and Sunday. Good group of people here, a lot of smart folks under the building there. We already went through those introductions, but Shane and I will be leading on the presentation today. And in terms of the agenda, we're going to kind of just cover the overview, and then the way that we're going to structure this is going to be going through the chat features. Chat is the same throughout teams and individuals, but it'll be important to call out what you can do with that, and because some capabilities are different in a team chat versus a personal one-to-one chat. Then we'll cover meetings. The phone system we'll briefly touch on. We'll probably spend a bit more time on sharing files and then screen sharing. And then at the end, we're going to have a few tips and tricks and some interesting things you can do with Teams that might just save you a little bit of time. And then we'll cover some of the applications that can kind of plug into Teams that you might already be using or want to be using. So what is Teams? It is Shane, how would you describe it? It's an everything. It is the central hub.
Yeah, I think, that's a great way to put it. It's kind of the hub for Microsoft's Office 365 platform, right? So you can have access to anything from the Office suite apps to communication and collaboration on documents and files. We'll get into more details later, but it encompasses your calendar, your phone system, internal chat, external chat now. So yeah, it's everything. We use it all day, every day.
Great description. Something worth calling out before we get rolling here is the growth that Teams has had. Now, they are constantly adding new features to it anyways. That's been a theme of Teams. So you'd open up and you have a new thing that you notice. Right now, they are adding more and more features to this every day. And if you wonder why, it's because of the increase of adoption. Before COVID, they had grown to 44 million daily active users. And even since then, now they're up to 75 million active users. So the growth curve is hockey stick growth. It's crazy. There's so many people using this. We had some other stats about like how many minutes a day are spent in Teams meetings across all of these users. And we don't want to bore you with any of that stuff, but it's just a lot of adoption. So the features are growing rapidly. So we're going to, I think we cover some of that a little bit later, right out of the gate here. So we have a general overview of what Teams is. We have, you might be jumping around a little bit here, Shane. I'm looking at what's coming up next. But what we're going to cover is the layout, the hub for SharePoint, and then we'll also touch on licensing and some of the Active Directory things too, because there's almost always a lot of questions around the capabilities. You might see something that maybe you can't use and it could be a restriction of your license, or you might not have administrative access to do certain things that maybe your IT department may have turned on or off. Here we go. So these are some of the new features that have been added over the last couple of months. Background effects has been a feature that was added. Initially, you could really only blur your background. Now you can add images very similar to like a Zoom meeting. Additionally, you can add your own custom backgrounds now. So if you have a picture of your favorite vacation spot or whatever that looks like, you can add that, which is kind of fun. We've been adding some really interesting photos for certain meetings. Someone added the Oval Office recently. That was interesting. The number of faces you can see on a conference call or a group call has increased. It was only 4 initially, and then you see the the icons below. That's now changed to 9, and they're working on rolling out for this fall 49, so 7 by 7. So that'll roll out sometime in fall. That was just announced the other day. Copout Chat, because we're doing so much in Teams, and we'll start to cover this stuff too. If you're chatting with someone in the moment, or trying to work on an Excel spreadsheet or a Word document or a PowerPoint, you can do these things inside of Teams, which will show. And someone chats you, then you leave that thing you're working on, and now you've just been sucked out of your productivity. So the pop-out chat is nice because now you can have individual windows of chat while you still work on things inside of Teams, whether that's Planner or what have you. Did you have something to add, Shane?
Yeah, Eric, just a cool quick note on the pop-out chat. I believe that Microsoft is also working on the ability to pop out other features of Teams. So today, right, we mentioned we spend all of our time in Teams. We're starting to realize it's getting a little tricky to juggle every piece of Teams because you got to go back and forth between them. And so it sounds like Microsoft understands that, and they're working through ways that you'll be able to pop out other pieces like Teams, maybe your calendar and other features so that you can kind of be doing multiple things at once.
Good point.
So it's cool to see them build on that.
A quick like workaround or like a pro tip would be is something that I've been doing. I have Teams open in my browser because you can open it in your browser. So if we're working on like to-dos or working in Planner, I'll have that open there, or you can pop up those apps separately also. But that way, as I'm on a web conference call with internal employees and we're working through some solution or what have you, I can still have that other piece open, so I'm not in and out of that actual conversation or chat. So for now, that's an interesting workaround that works and is effective. But like Shane said, they're working to make it even better. You can also raise your hand now. That's been around for a little bit, but there's a lot of interrupting when there's a lot of people in the room and everyone's trying to talk at the same time. I just asked Shane right now, like, did you want to say something? With Teams, you can actually, sort of actually raising your real hand, you can click a little button that shows an indication that you're ready to talk. So that way you can know who to click on next for speaking and give them a turn. Reader seats are great. Some people don't like them, some people do. It depends on your organization and the personality and departments, but it's really nice to know that someone has read the message you had sent them so you know that they got it. Hopefully they get back to you. We deal with this in like our text messaging lives potentially. Someone might look at a message and then go back to doing whatever they were doing. So then it looks like they're ignoring you, but at least this way, if that shows read and they haven't responded in a certain amount of time, you can ping them. The idea behind Teams and chat is that it's very instant, right? Rather than email, there's a little bit more of a delay there. You can get to it when you get to it, but with the chat, it's really meant to be like an instant chat. So interesting feature. Some like it, some don't. It depends on the personality and the company culture. Shane, do you want to talk about some of these ones here?
Yeah, absolutely. So just a few more. We're not going to show you all these new features. These are just some that have recently kind of been announced by Microsoft. So I'll just go through this list real quick and touch on some of the important ones. They've added background blur for mobile devices, specifically iOS, so that's a nice new feature for that. You can have live captions now on mobile and across the app in general. So if you're in an area where you don't want to hear it, or maybe you just need the captions, you can turn that feature on. Live events have increased significantly, so they've recently added some significant power to live events. Very similar to like this webinar setup, right, where we're presenting and we have an audience. The live event feature allows you to run kind of a live webinar for folks, and it gives you a lot higher increases now. I believe it's up to 20,000 attendees right now. You can have 50 different live events at once within your organization. So if you're part of a larger organization and you have different groups and teams of people running live events, that shouldn't be a problem. And if you reach out to Microsoft, they'll even extend the support to include 100,000 attendees. So they're really amping up the back end to make this more useful for more and more organizations, which is exciting. And then they've added some more features around live events, like sharing your system audio, so you can play a video during a webinar or a live event and folks will be able to hear it as well as see it. And then they've added some features into meetings where you can end a meeting for everybody if you're the owner of the meeting, so to speak, so that everybody's out of that call. And you can now record just one-on-one individual calls as well. We use the recording feature a lot at SwigTech for podcasts and webinars and stuff, so that's been super handy.
Good to go. I think from here, I'll let you steer a little bit more. And now I'm controlling the PowerPoint. So, if you wanted to pull it up and take control, you could. I don't think it'd be terribly difficult, but if you're comfortable with this format, we can keep going and we can get into the chat feature as the agenda had called out.
Yeah, sounds good. And yeah, just so everyone's aware, yeah, feel free to post questions and stuff. We are trying to monitor those a little bit here, and then if it makes sense, we'll kind of interrupt the flow here and answer some questions. But if not, we'll try and get to the questions toward the end of the webinar. So yeah, I'll let you keep control, Eric, but I'll dive in here. So we're just going to go through kind of some of the basic features of Teams. This is kind of the what is Teams, the meat of it, where you will spend most of your time in it. And we'll just kind of roll through these. So starting first up, kind of the most basic aspect of Teams is chat. So with chat on that left-hand bar, you can access chat across everyone in your organization. There is some ability to chat folks outside of your organization that also use Teams, but that can get a little bit more complex and it might depend on your organization. So what we like to say is think of this chat piece as internal. It's a quick and easy way to communicate with other coworkers. You'll see on that left-hand side, we've got kind of the menu of different people you've been chatting with. And then across the top, you can start a new chat if you need to, maybe with someone you haven't chatted. And then you'll see across the top bar there, it kind of shows you who you're communicating with, right? So this is a screenshot of Eric's Teams where he's chatting directly with me. And you can chat within this chat, you can add just text or files. You notice we have shared an Excel spreadsheet here. We'll dig into what that means in general as well as we go, but you can also see those files if you choose across that top menu, and or add some other tabs. And then on the far right of that menu, you'll see the options for video call or phone call or even a screen sharing session, or adding more people to the chat. So there's a lot that you can do with chat. Usually it's mostly one-to-one, but if there's something quick you need to communicate to a couple of people, it's also convenient for that. You can add a few more folks to a single chat. So then kind of building on the concept of chat, we have these teams. So you'll see again on that left-hand menu, you can choose teams instead of chat. And then now you're in your teams here, and you'll see kind of on that secondary left sidebar there, there's your different team names, right? So we have client engagement, operations, project chatter, all of those are team names. And then within each of those teams, you're gonna have a structure of what's called channels. And so individual channels are gonna be where you can communicate directly with the folks that are a part of that team. So think of this like you can break out your organization into teams or departments, if that makes sense for you. And then if you have a department, let's say you have the accounting or HR department, they would have their own team, and you would just put all of the accounting staff into that team. And now when you're posting into a channel on that team, everyone across that accounting team is going to be able to see the communication. And this chat is going to be very similar to the one-on-one chat. So you're going to be able to add text. You can format it with rich text formats, right? So you can bold stuff, highlight it, color text. You can add images, you can share documents and files directly in the Teams chat. You'll see here, if you post links and stuff, you can jump right out to websites. And then across the top of a team, you're going to see that it has a very similar format, right? So you'll have posts, files, and then a couple other names there. We'll get into what those different tabs mean. You're gonna see the posts or that chat feature, and then the files feature for each individual team. And sorry, Eric, I think I got maybe a screen or two ahead of you. So maybe I'm a little too excited about Teams.
That's okay. Yeah, it's you're doing great. I'll let you keep going.
This, and like I mentioned on the left here, you can have different channels within a team, right? So you'll see our client engagement team has a channel for brain food events, a channel for our marketing, a channel for our net promoter score. And we'll dig into what some of those can do for you a little later. And then across the top there, where I mentioned you have the posts and the files, we have Wiki and Brain Food Stream listed on here. Those are a couple of add-ins we've added. And if you click that plus button across the top there, on any team, you're going to have the ability to add some different, what they're called, are apps or bots. And then it will insert it as a tab on that team. So a couple of good examples for why you might want to do this. If maybe you have a sales team and you want everyone to be on the same page for your sales number and you track those in a spreadsheet, you can add an Excel tab and it will allow you to add a specific spreadsheet, and now that will always be available across the top. You can have sales numbers baked right into your sales team, and everyone on the team can see it. Another good example is other apps and tools that you can put in there. So there's like Trello ties into this, OneNote for taking notes. There's all kinds of them, all different kinds of apps and features. You can add things like Box or OneDrive to show like a list of files. The list goes on, we could talk about that for a long time. Another really good example would be Power BI, which is business intelligence tool from Microsoft. You can build out really neat charts and graphs and visual data that you can manipulate. So that might be a great feature for your team as well.
And, you know, like a good example might be just to call out, like if you're, in accounting or, some department like that, you can have an Excel spreadsheet as one of the tabs across the top, Excel being the app. And that way that's omnipresent for that team. It's a live, like breathing document. So like there's version history and tracking there. So it's not like a new version, a new version, a new version. Someone saved it to their, shared file or desktop, and suddenly you have all these versions on top of this thing. Now it's just one document. Then you can go back to, various versions. That's a great use case where it can live inside of that team, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. So shifting gears here a little bit to meetings. Actually, before we dive into some of this, Eric, we do have a couple of great questions about meetings. So right off the cuff, I'm just going to answer a few of those. Someone asked, when should we use a live event instead of a meeting? That's a great question. So you'll see here as we point through these slides, a meeting is more for like a gathering of just a handful of people to have a conversation, or a meeting, like a traditional meeting in the office, right? That you would have 6 or 8 or 10 people in a conference room. Rather than that, now you can just all join via a Teams meeting. It's going to work really well for internal and external for those smaller meeting settings, and everyone is going to be able to collaborate and communicate. So everyone can have their audio and video and share their screen if they join from a computer. And then for meetings, folks can even dial in if you have the right licensing for audio conferencing, very similar to a traditional conference bridge. And then on the other side of that, a live event is more like a webinar setting where you're presenting to a large group of external people, and you don't want as much collaboration. It's more of just a presentation, and they have Q&A built in, but that's about it. That's all you're going to see with the live events.
I think there were a few more that came through that were maybe relevant there to some of the other things we had called out. We can take just a few more moments to answer some of these questions, and then pick right back up where we were. The one for recording of the one-to-one calls, Shane, the question there, do both participants see that? I can't see the rest of the question. It's getting cut off here. Do you see that question?
I do not see that one actually, Eric. You might have a different view than me. What were you saying though? Oh, here we go. Do both participants see this being recorded? Yes. So in any scenario where you start recording in Teams, it's going to announce to everyone, hey, this is being recorded, whether that be one-to-one or across a meeting of multiple people. And it's also going to give you a notice if you're the person who turned on the recording. It's going to say, hey, you're recording this now. You should probably verbally tell everybody so that they're aware that it's being recorded as well.
Okay. We'll do one more and then move on. Is that okay?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Your example of an Excel spreadsheet for the sales team, can it be shared as a read only, so only one person is making those changes?
Okay, so when you are sharing a spreadsheet through Teams, like just dropping it into a chat, that's going to be more of a collaborative concept. So when you're dropping it in there, it's going to automatically assume that you want to edit it with those people that you're sharing it with. But there is a way to do that. So if you have a file in your OneDrive or maybe a SharePoint site or something along those lines, and you choose to share that with people, you're going to have the option to set it to edit or read only. I hope that answers that.
Great. Okay, we'll pick up and move on from here, and we'll come back and visit some more questions as we go.
Sounds good. Cool. So jumping into meetings a little bit, we're just going to go through a few ways that you can schedule and do meetings. So the first one is kind of this Meet Now concept. This is available throughout Teams and through individual chat. So you saw earlier when I showed the chat feature, you can really just instantly call someone to start a conversation. You can also use this Meet Now feature within a team. And you'll see on this next screen here, there's a little Meet Now button baked into each team and channel. Across the bottom there, we've got highlighted in red. If you choose that, it's going to just spin up an immediate video call inside of this team. So now everyone that's a part of this team, I mentioned before, maybe you have an accounting team or a HR team. Everyone that's part of that team is going to get a notification, hey, Shane started a Meet Now session, and they can join it. So that's really nice for quick stand-up calls. If maybe you have a 15-minute phone call every Monday morning with a group of staff. That's a really quick and easy way to do that. Another alternative is setting up a scheduled meeting. So scheduled meetings are very similar to when you just put a meeting on your Outlook calendar, and it's actually going to be synced with your Outlook environment as well. So anything you put on your Teams calendar or anything you put on your Outlook calendar and vice versa, you're going to see across both of them. And if you make it from within Teams, it should automatically be a Microsoft Teams meeting. So you're going to get a link in the meeting that'll say join the Teams live event. If you have the conference ability, like we have highlighted there, the phone number, you'll have an audio conferencing feature for folks to call in over a phone. And then if you create this from Outlook, there should be an option in your Outlook to also set up a Microsoft Teams meeting. And that will add the same link here where you see the join Microsoft Teams meeting and all of the details. I did see a question earlier about forwarding a meeting. So I'll answer that since that ties into this. This is going to be very similar to an Outlook meeting, right? So if you have a meeting on your calendar and it has a Microsoft Teams meeting link inside of it, if you forward that to other attendees, they will also get that same link and be able to join the Microsoft Teams meeting just as you can. Do note it has the same feature as Outlook. So when you forward a meeting, the original creator of that meeting is going to get a notice that you forwarded it to someone else. So just keep that in mind. And then I see a question here tied to this as well. Is there a way to take attendance of everyone who joined the meeting? Yes and no. That's not quite as robust as it should be yet, but I believe Microsoft is improving that. Right now, you'll be able to see everyone that joins the meeting. You can see the list of participants. So if it's a smaller group, it's pretty easy to spot check and see who's there. And oftentimes, if it's a smaller meeting, obviously everyone will be collaborating and communicating, so you'll know who's in the room. And then it does kind of have a running feed in the chat piece of the meeting. So when you end a meeting, it's going to drop you out to just see the chat from that meeting. In there, you'll see who joined the meeting. They don't have like an attendee list or anything yet. Excuse me. But I believe we're working on improving that feature. Cool, and then we touched on the calendar here a little bit already, but I'll mention some specific features of it now. So this is the calendar. Like I said, it's tied directly into your Outlook environment as well. So this should mirror your Outlook calendar. And then up in the top right, you're gonna have a couple of options. So you can choose to meet now if you wanna just spin up a quick meeting, kind of like we mentioned in the Teams side. You can do that from here as well, and it'll ask you, who you want to join that meeting, and you can add a few people to join a quick meeting. And then the other option there is the new meeting button. So if you click on a new meeting button, you're going to get that page that we showed a little earlier to show you how to create a meeting with folks. And it's important to note when you click Meet Now, you're going to get kind of a quick opportunity to see what your camera and stuff looks like. So there's Eric checking his teeth to make sure that he's good to go before he invites anybody to this quick meeting. And then, again, if you click the new meeting option, you're going to get a meeting layout very similar to what you're going to see in Outlook. So you can add a title, you can choose to add required attendees. This can be internal or external. You just enter people by name if they're internal or email address if they're external. You'll set the date, the time, all that good stuff. You can add an agenda, a location if the meeting has a physical location, etc. And that's going to bake that right into your calendar in Teams and Outlook. And then the other option, if you click that drop down arrow in the top right corner, that's going to be where you're going to get the option to schedule a live event. So if you choose a live event there, it's going to walk you through some settings for a live event. Keep in mind, these are limited to certain license types, and your organization can also limit who you can invite to a live event. So if you go in to create a live event and it's not allowing you, if you don't have that option there, you might have to change your licensing. If it's not allowing you to invite external attendees, you might have to get in contact with someone who administers your Microsoft stack to tweak some settings for you so you can have external meetings. And then you'll see here,
there is a question that's really relative to what you just said. So pause real quick to ask the one question. It says, does an external user to a meeting have to have Microsoft Teams on their computer to participate in the meeting?
That is a great question. Thank you for interrupting there, Eric. So no, but it's going to be a lot better experience. So the way this is going to work, if the person already has Microsoft Teams on their computer, when they click that join Microsoft Teams meeting link, it's going to jump them right into their Microsoft Teams, and they can join right from there. It'll pass through their name and their information, and then they can, use their camera and audio and share their screen, all of the features. If someone doesn't have Microsoft Teams, it's going to take them out to a web browser, and the option there is going to be they can download Teams, or they can just use the web portal. So I'm sure similar to how some people are accessing GoToWebinar today for this event, you can install the GoToWebinar feature or access it from a web app. Same concept. You'll get all the same features when you access Teams from the web if you don't download it, but it's going to ask you to either log in or type in your name. If you don't have a Microsoft account, you may have to manually enter in your name so people know who you are. And then it'll ask for permission to use your camera and your microphone and everything like that. The other option that we kind of touched on is the conferencing bridge. So if you have audio conferencing licensing and you create a Microsoft Teams meeting, it's going to add a phone number to the meeting. And then if someone calls into that phone number from a cell phone or a desk phone, they can be conferenced in just via audio. So obviously they're going to lose a lot of the features, but they can at least still communicate in the meeting. That's great for an external participant who maybe isn't interested in joining to share screens or cast their video.
Great, thank you. That was a really great question at a good time. Next up is going to be the phone system. Are you comfortable switching gears into that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good. I'll go ahead and go to the next slide here.
Great. So there's also a phone system piece baked into Microsoft Teams. I do want to warn folks right now, this can get a little confusing if you've never used Microsoft Teams as your phone system. So bear with us as we walk through this. Please ask questions if you have them. It is going to require some unique licensing to make and receive external calls, but anyone and everyone should have the feature to make internal calls. And so essentially what that means is you can use Microsoft Teams as your full phone system, right? You can make and receive calls, transfer calls, you can have an auto attendant, a voicemail system, everything that a traditional phone system has had, you can use in Microsoft Teams, but it requires additional licensing so that you can have the numbers ported in and call out to domestic and international plans. So keep that in mind as we go through this. Like I said, ask questions if some of that doesn't make sense. We'll walk through a little bit of both. So we'll show you a little bit about what phone system looks like and a little bit about what just basic calling within your organization looks like. So here we have a slew of different devices just to give you a feel for how this would replace your phone system if you switched to Microsoft Teams. Going from top left all the way down to the bottom right, we have a conferencing speaker in the top left. So if you do conference calls or speaker calls, you can utilize a device like that, or really any microphone that's available to you. You can use a headset like the one pictured there in the top middle to replace a handset. So instead of having a physical phone now at your desk, your phone is your computer, and you can tie that Bluetooth or USB headset into your computer and use it as your phone. And then in the top right there is a conference phone, right? So I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with Polycom and having a conference phone in the middle of the table in a conference room. Microsoft Teams does that as well. So you'll see that conference room phone kind of has a little built-in Microsoft Teams feature, and you'll be able to dial out and have people call into your conference room. And then on the bottom left there is what's called the Microsoft Surface Hub. This is if you want to get really fancy with your conference rooms, you can have what Microsoft calls the Surface Hub, which is a full-on display and camera system that has Teams and some Microsoft apps and features built right into it, so that you can have video calls from your conference rooms. And then bottom middle is kind of what would replace a traditional handset. So maybe you have folks who really like having that physical handset to pick up and answer a phone. You can still do that with Teams. You'll see the little image there offers it to look a lot like Microsoft Teams, right? So it's still going to be tied to your Microsoft Teams account. You'll go in and you can click names or type in a phone number to call out and receive calls on that. And then the bottom right is just an example of a way that you can make a room a Microsoft Teams room. So instead of getting a Microsoft Surface Hub or a conference phone, you can add a webcam and a built-in Teams hub into the room for calendaring purposes and doing audio and video calls. All of these are kind of more designed for the phone system piece where you can dial out externally and collaborate with people outside the organization. So shifting gears a little bit, just to give you an idea, this is the calls feature of Teams. So on the left there, you're going to see that calls is listed. And then depending upon your licensing, if you have a phone system or not, you're going to be able to call internally no matter what from in here. And if you have a phone system license, you'll be able to call externally. So this is where you would go to type in a number and contact someone outside of your organization if you're using this as your phone system. And this is also where you can see your call history and voicemails, and it transcribes the voicemails for you, but you can also download the audio and listen to them from here as well. So that's a really brief synopsis of the calls piece. Like I said, it can get a little confusing because there are some additional licenses required and things like that. If you don't use Teams as a phone system, you probably won't spend much time in this piece of it, because we showed earlier, you can call folks from a chat, you can call them from a Teams, you can call them from your calendar, you can join a meeting, all of that.
Okay, one relevant question that came through in regard to this before we move on to files is there a way to take, how can we upgrade our calls to do external? What is the licensing requirement there to be able to have that external call for at least domestic?
Yeah, definitely. So it is going to depend a little bit on the licensing you have, but generally speaking, there's two pieces you need to add to be able to use the phone system solution. There's going to be just the basic phone system licensing, which usually comes at a cost of $8 a user a month. And then on top of that, you choose either domestic calling plan to get the actual calling plan similar to like what you would pay your phone service provider. And the domestic is $12 a user a month. And if you need international calling, that's going to be $24 a user a month. So if we're putting that together, it's going to be somewhere between $20 and $32 a person a month to have these phone features. But when you start to consider paying phone plans with Cisco or other phone providers, you're going to see that this per person cost ends up being a lot more reasonable compared to traditional phone systems and having all of the hardware stood up in your office. You'll never have to replace any of that equipment because it doesn't exist anymore. So all of that can kind of add up too.
Yeah, we've been really like some folks have just used like their earbuds for like their calls. We don't have anything connected right now at all. We're just using the built-in mic and webcam. I've been treating calls the same way because I'm in this den in my house, so I'm undisturbed. There's no other external noise. Obviously, back at the office, that's a little bit different. If you're sharing space or if you're in like kind of like a collaborative workspace, then you're going to want that headset or something like that to have those private conversations or the hard phone. We'll move on to files and keep going here. Great question. Thank you.
Great. So files, like we mentioned a little bit before, another big piece of Teams. So we're just going to walk through a few different ways that you can share and collaborate on files. So just to kind of give you a feel for where files live in Teams, on that left-hand menu again, right, kind of how you navigate everything, you're going to jump into files there. And from there, you'll see all of your recent files. So you can see here a list of files. This is going to be anything and everything you've accessed from Teams. So something that you've shared with someone in an individual chat, something you've opened from a Teams channel, something someone else has shared with you. Anything and everything is going to be listed here. And it's obviously going to be, since it's recent, right, it's going to be in order of since you've last interacted with it. This is a great spot if maybe John shared an Excel spreadsheet with you last week and you don't want to go digging through the chat conversation, but you know you opened it a couple of days ago, you can hop in here and find that file really quick and easily. So a couple of ways to share files. A big one is file sharing in chats or Teams. So we'll show you how to do both of those here. On the left-hand side is the chat environment. So this is a one-to-one chat. You can see in this chat, Eric shared a spreadsheet. And then I also shared a spreadsheet toward the bottom there. So they pop up in the chat feed. And then when you click on those files, they're going to open directly in Microsoft Teams. So you'll see on the right there, we've clicked into this Excel spreadsheet, and you can kind of see a very basic version of Excel has opened up from within Microsoft Teams. Now there's a couple of ways you can do this. You don't have to open everything from within Teams. If you click that ... you'll see that there's, the ellipses on that previous page, you'll see there's a way to open it from a desktop app. You can open it in the web browser and access the Microsoft Excel version in the web. And then you can also, once you've opened it in Microsoft Teams, there'll be a way to open it via a desktop app as well if you click across the top bar. So it makes it easy and convenient to open it from in Teams, and then you can also pull it out of Teams if you need to be in Teams for other reasons, but still want to edit that file. All of these are going to be live and active, so keep that in mind. When you share a spreadsheet or a document or a presentation with someone else in Teams, the two of you both now have access to that, and as you edit it and change it, it's going to live change for the other person, and it's going to continually update that. And there's a way to go back and view history and view revisions of what people did if someone screws up the file or deletes all the rows in your spreadsheet. But it is a live file, so keep that in mind. And now it's shared and it's kind of living in the back end of Teams in SharePoint.
Yeah, so SharePoint is the back end of Teams, right? So it's kind of the engine under the hood. Some folks might remember SharePoint in its earlier days and may have gotten a bad taste in their mouth at some point from it, but it's really what is the driving force of Teams. Teams is the GUI interface that you leverage SharePoint from. What we've seen commonly now, and we've been helping a lot of organizations with and companies with, is getting rid of the traditional file servers that live on premise and migrating them to SharePoint, aka Microsoft Teams. And if we think about the remote world that we've really kind of just been exposed to recently, that's changed things from like not having to access a VPN to get to your files and things of that nature, having things be omnipresent on your phone, tablet, computer, laptop. You get 5 what is the word I'm looking for here, licenses, or 5 different devices that you can install Teams on out of the box. Like you can hit Teams from all sorts of different devices as a user. So like as a salesperson for SwickTech externally, like I'm able to access things from my iPhone, from my laptop. I'm able to collaborate on documents really easily with Teams. So it's just a really great feature set to be able to migrate your files to that environment. The recommendation as far as SwickTech eating our own dog food has really been to pick a department and then move that over and kind of do a phased approach rather than everything all at once. So maybe move accounting, marketing, et cetera, right? And then maybe eventually then, client drives and things like that. But there's some real good strategies that we've been able to deploy for a lot of businesses around that.
Cool. Yeah. So, and actually what you have up on the screen here, Eric, right now is a really great example of that. And we have a question that ties directly to this as well. Can we sync file structures from a server into Teams? So the idea here would be, instead of having server files, you now have your files in Teams. So that it isn't synced across a server environment and Teams, it's actually replacing that environment. And to showcase that a little bit here, you see on the left-hand side, here is a general channel from our Project Cheddar team, right? So this is a team that a group of people have access to, and we've gone into that Files tab, and you can see the file structure below, right? We have folders, we have documents, etc. And then you can go ahead and click that sync button across the top there, and that's going to link this like a traditional file share or server onto your computer. So now on the right-hand side, you'll see we have that Project Cheddar general channel synced right onto our file structure on our computer, and it'll list all of the folders and documents just like how they are in Teams. So those are the same files, they're one and the same. If you edit it, it's going to change it on both, and it's going to change it for everyone that has access to that team. And then also it's important to note, so a lot of these files, when you sync them onto your computer, are still going to be stored in the cloud, and when you go to edit and access them, it will download a local copy. You can manually download a local copy too if maybe you want something to be readily available offline all the time. So there's ways you can do that, and we can showcase that as well.
Great.
Cool.
We'll move
So
on.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Eric,
Do you have another question you wanted to answer there? Or?
No, I think that sums that one up. I think we're going to jump into kind of a few more tips and tricks and features if you want to go through those.
Yeah, screen sharing is look at these guys. Ryan on the right, his beard has gotten exponentially longer. Shane, you look about the same.
Well, thanks, Eric.
We got the mustache. So here we're just going to showcase screen sharing. It's very easy to do. Once you're in Teams, you get this little bar, kind of just floating there on the screen. You click the little icon that's highlighted in red, and that's going to give you a couple options. I find the tip here is, like, if you're going to be in some sort of presentation mode, best practice is to close and minimize as many windows as you don't need, so you don't have too many to select from, so you don't risk clicking the wrong one. We did that in prepping for this one. So, it's very similar. Some folks might be used to that, but it's really easy to do in Teams. So you pick an app, pick a window, pick your desktop, whatever suits you. Another neat feature is, if you notice back on this other slide here, all the way on the right, it says Whiteboard. This is great for like brainstorming and ideation and just kind of moving quickly. For us, we have touch screens, so like it's not terribly difficult to use this. So, a really generic, silly example is just writing hi, but when we're not in the office any longer, for those that might still be working remote, whether you have a whiteboard or some sort of big screen that you can draw on for ideation and brainstorming, this is a great feature to call out, I guess, as a collaborative tool for Teams. And by teams, I mean like teams in your organization. The word teams gets used way too much in these presentations. There's teams within teams, and then we're talking about teams of people. So some tips and tricks, though, we'll move on. If you go into the search bar of Teams, you have all of these things that can pop up, and the next screen will show how you can do this. So this is the search bar. If you type in, the hash here, you get this drop down of all of these things that you can do quickly at the stroke of a key here. So you can kind of see this, like join a meeting. You can make a call really quick. You can set your status for away or available or be right back. So just a really quick, easy way to kind of shortcut your way through some things. Same thing if you type in the @ symbol, it's going to populate maybe the people that you talk to the most in your organization, and say, do you want to just @chat them right now, or stay on top of the latest news? You can post a stream. Stream is Teams version of like a private YouTube channel for your organization. So when you record calls, meetings, podcasts, etc., those things live in Stream. You can praise someone, so you can show gratitude for someone that's doing a great job, kind of some digital praise. So you get the idea here. It's just a great little tip and trick to do some stuff there. And then there's more apps also. Additionally, one thing that's, I guess, important is you can be mindful of your statuses. If we're in a remote world, I forget to change this often, but it's good to set these things, because there's that reticle there that will show your status. So everyone else in your organization will know, are you on a call? Are you busy? Should we not be disturbing you? Right now, my status is set to do not disturb. Otherwise, I'd be getting all sorts of notifications, which would be very distracting for doing this presentation. However, it also syncs with your Outlook calendar, like we talked about. So when I set an out of the office, if I have like PTO time, or if I'm out for lunch or something like that, by setting your Outlook calendar to be busy or away or out of office, that will reflect here too. So you might see, where it shows available there, it's just all green. If I'm out of office, but I'm physically present on my computer, it will show a green with like another circle of green around it, indicating, yes, Eric is out of office, but he is actually working and available right now. So I don't know if you have anything else.
What's that?
You're not
You're not supposed to be doing that, Eric. You're out of the office.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's interesting. Maybe it should be that every single day, right? Technically. Yeah. So it's kind of I was using it that way the other day. And then you can actually type a custom message too. So you can type in like, hey, I don't know, quarantining myself right now, or whatever, whatever message is applicable. Eating a delicious lunch from, I don't know, your favorite restaurant. Some other things that are a little bit, I wouldn't say they're technical in nature, but these are, there's a little bit more to them. So this isn't necessarily something that would be completely out of the box. Some of these are, some are not. So out of the box, there are apps, but then not out of the box are bots. And there's some things you can do to automate some tasks. So like just at a high level, the things called out here in this screen, Poly is like a polling software. So just like I showed the shortcut where you can type in the @ symbol, very similar like social media. If you type @Poly and you can ask it a question and provide answers, you can put a poll right into a team chat. So I can do a general chat to the whole company, do an @Poly, and do a poll real quick on, does everybody want donuts delivered today, or do they want bagels, right? And I can do a poll right there, so I have a lot of back and forth, and I can get feedback from the company, right? Or when should we have the holiday party, or whatever you can think of there. Remember, this is a neat one. So if you are forgetful and you have so much going on, you can do @remember this, and it'll set when your chat gets so deep and buried. Maybe Shane and I have talked so much, but we shared something inside of a chat. If I know that that's important, I want to go back to it. It's going to be maybe challenging for me to go and find that through a scroll of conversation. Think about like when you're texting someone, you may have shared a photo with someone, you're scrolling and scrolling, going, oh, where is this photo that I shared with them? For Teams, you can just do remember this, and it'll flag that so you can find it easily. We've automated some things with bots at SwickTech. So one thing we've automated is our Net Promoter Score. And when we send out our Net Promoter Score and someone responds to that with whatever they're going to rank us, hopefully a 10, and then leave feedback that says you're the best, that flows into our Net Promoter Score channel in Teams. So then everybody is seeing that. So, you don't have to go to our platform that manages that to log into a web portal to see that information. We've also done that with our SMS texting messages. As you can see there, Power BI is another app you can bake in. And we can show some of that stuff here too. And I see some questions coming in, so I just want to pause for a second to address any of the questions that I've been seeing come through. Are there any that are related to what we're talking about right here?
If you want to just cruise through these last few slides, Eric, then we can jump into the questions we haven't answered yet. Okay. There is one directly related real quick that I'll touch on. How can we get a custom bot made for us? I think go ahead.
Oh yeah, if you were gonna say something, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I can answer that. So the idea of the bots is that they have, as displayed on the screen, actually, these bots or apps are going to be ways to connect with other tools and features that are maybe outside of Teams, or that create these other pieces like the polls. So you can see there's things for Zoom and to tie Cisco WebEx in. It's not necessarily a concept of where you would build a custom bot, but if you want to have something that ties into the API, that would be where you do a custom setup. And I think, Eric, you have a slide on that showing how we have incorporated our SMS. Oftentimes, this is going to be something that you could just reach out to an IT company, or maybe if you have internal IT staff, they should be familiar with this concept of APIs to be able to link in external features. So
it's a great feature set. If anybody's familiar with the company called Zapier, they're a company that's really built around automation. So API is a technical term, but that's a great way to think about it if you're familiar with that. And Zapier does actually tie in with Teams too, but there may be some limitations based on how IT has set things up for you in your organization. You might not have access to just start plugging all sorts of other things in via an API. So check with your IT department or company if you need assistance with that stuff, but it's powerful and it can be a great way to automate some things and make life easier. We would be remiss as an IT company doing this presentation if we didn't take a second to talk about multi-factor authentication. So for us as an organization to even log into Office 365 or Teams, we've enabled multi-factor authentication, also known as MFA. Just a quick 2-second brief intro. It's multi-factor authentication. There's also two-factor authentication, and then there's also dynamic multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor is three things. Something you know. It's not auto. Sorry about that. Let me just go back. Something that you know, something that you have, and something that you are. So in most cases, you know your password, you possess a phone, and usually that phone nowadays has some sort of fingerprint or face reader to authenticate you, right? So those are three things. And the reason for this is to really prevent anybody from getting into these systems and causing havoc or detonating some sort of malicious attack or ransomware or something like that, or a crypto attack. The recommendation as far as where you ought to be applying MFA, if you haven't, is on your VPN. Anybody that is in accounting, protect the finances, and also email. These are vulnerable areas that should be protected, and it's not difficult to turn this stuff on. So you might be familiar with MFA if you've done any banking mobilely with any bank at all. Usually you're going to get some sort of text or something like that to verify or authenticate yourself. That would be two-factor authentication. Multi-factor is a little bit more secure. Lastly, on this piece, before we move on, who needs MFA? Decision makers, people in the C-suite, and financial controllers. So protect decisions and protect financial controllers. So if someone's going to get phished in a phishing scam, like someone in the C-suite or an executive role, if they're in control of delegating decisions, if someone spoofs their account and delegates a decision, you want to make sure that it is indeed that person, that they haven't been compromised. Same thing on the financial side. Anybody that's in control of money, put MFA on those accounts. So I'll get off my MFA soapbox here. And I think we may have just cut into the middle of some of the bots, but as I had mentioned earlier, we also use that for our Net Promoter Score too, so that our team, on our client engagement team, anybody can jump in and respond to those, good or bad. Shane, this is your spot, so I'll hand it back over to you before we get into our final slide of Q&A.
Yeah, we only have a couple minutes left here, so I'll just touch on this real quick. There are all kinds of pricing plans when it comes to Microsoft Office 365. The ones we generally recommend are the E or Enterprise licenses here. And so we just wanted to showcase you get a lot with those licenses. You're going to get security and compliance behind it, so it's going to be easy to light up MFA features. And there's a lot of bits and pieces you can add on, right? We mentioned the phone system, but it gets really deep really quickly. So if you have questions about that kind of thing, don't hesitate to reach out to us or talk to whoever manages your Microsoft Teams environment, and they should be able to get you the right licensing. So I think with that, Eric, we want to jump in and answer a few of these questions that we may have skipped over. Before we do so, I do want to announce we are doing another webinar next week, June 24th, so Wednesday at 2 p.m. And we're going to be talking all about cybersecurity and how we implement that for our clients. So we have different layers and levels, and we'll be going into all kinds of details on what you need, including multi-factor authentication, password vaults, all kinds of email spam filtering, and so much more. So feel free to join us for that next week. So with that, I'll answer a few of these questions that are here. And if you have any other burning questions, feel free to post them now. So a couple we didn't answer. Someone asked, does Microsoft Teams work seamlessly with Apple devices, or is there anything that you should be aware of? It is going to work really seamlessly. Eric kind of alluded to the fact that he's got an iPhone and he's got Microsoft Teams set up on there. He can do anything and everything that you can do on the desktop app, and it's actually going to look very similar. And then you also have the desktop app available on Apple computers as well, right? So Macs or iPads. And it's going to look and feel pretty much identical to the desktop version we showcased to you. In fact, those screenshots are probably nearly the same. So yeah, it's pretty seamless across both, or across a web browser or smart devices. And then another one here. Can you show us how to share system audio for live events? Someone asked. So I mentioned earlier, you can pass through the audio from your computer on a live event. That is going to be very specific to your computer and your setup. There's going to be some device settings you need to edit for that, both on the computer and in your Teams environment. So you're going to have to tweak your microphone to be able to pass the audio through. So it's a little bit more complicated than I can show here. But there are a lot of great tutorials online. If you just Google that information, you can usually walk through it and figure it out.
Yeah, and we'd be happy to put a tutorial together for that too, if that's a common question. We can showcase that. We have a library of tutorials on our website and our YouTube channel. So if anybody wants to learn more about Teams, we have a library around just that.
Great.
Well, thank you everybody so much for attending. I think we're at time, or 1 minute over. Hopefully we covered the topic well. Thank you very much for giving us your time today.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Shane, and thanks, Eric, for everything here today. This was great information. We really appreciate having you guys, and love the idea of the cybersecurity webinar as well. That's definitely a huge topic that we talk about and warn both consumers and businesses about cybersecurity issues. So excellent topic, and thank you so much for this today. Thank you all for attending today. We are going to have a quick survey after you close out of the webinar today, so if you don't mind letting us know your feedback on how things went, and then also any topics of discussion for future BBB webinars that we could maybe offer for you. We'll be happy to put more webinars together in the next coming weeks for you. So thanks again, Eric and Shane, and to everybody at SWCTech for providing this great information to us. And I hope everyone has a great rest of their day and rest of their week. Thanks so much.
Everybody, thanks, Julie.